Hey everyone, in this video we have an expert on AI agent observability, Adam Silverman, the COO of AgentOps. Honestly, Adam needs no introductions because he is very well known in the space. And so in this video, we're going to focus on primarily observability, but also at the end of the video, we're going to discuss broader topics like the future of AI agents, building startups. And at the end, we'll even do a practical tutorial of integrating AgentOps with our framework. So first of all, Adam, why should we care about AI agent observability?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I think when we started building agents, what we quickly realized was agents just aren't reliable. And anybody who's listening to this video is maybe building these custom agents with any of the major frameworks. You realize that there's a lot of testing that goes into actually building these agents and making them reliable, and then actually scaling them all the way through to production. And observability is one of the best ways you can actually understand what your agents are doing, how they're succeeding, how they're failing, if they're being, working towards the right goals. And we deal with a lot of companies who think about observability almost as an afterthought. They just go right into day zero, writing their first line of code, trying to build this agent. But they don't realize is they're not monitoring actually the performance of the agent. They're not building evals. They're not putting in the right guardrails. And this might be fine. Like if you just want to have a nice demo video that goes live on YouTube or on Twitter, and you go super viral because you built an agent that does this one workflow incredibly well, that's great. Maybe you don't think too much about observability. But if you want to build something that's like a real business, if you want to actually go and scale this to production, if you want to go sell to like large Fortune 500 companies, then you have to make sure you got to have like a backbone for what your agent's doing. You need to be able to track the cost. You need to understand latency. You need to understand where it's succeeding, where it's failing. You need to understand what tools it's calling. And observability is like the only way to actually get a lens into what your agent is actually doing out there. If you're not doing it, you're basically coding in the dark. You're basically developing in the dark. And that's something that we've seen a lot of developers come to us saying, hey, we were in the dark before. And then basically in 2 lines of code, we were able to actually get full understanding of what our agents were doing. So that's the high level. We can dive deeper into any of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely agree with you there that people often build those examples on YouTube and they think, that this is what it looks like in production. But in fact, in production, things always go wrong. And to make agents reliable in production, it takes way more work. And this is like drastically different from what you typically see here on YouTube. So yeah, in this video, I would love to get your insights on that and actually show people how it's done. But before we do that, can you give us like a use case where observability made like a significant impact or help you to spot some underlying issues?
Yeah, we're working with one of the largest travel companies in the world. And instead of going with like a Decagon or one of these off-the-shelf customer support agents, they ended up going and building their own custom solution from the ground up using AutoGen from Microsoft in this particular example. And what happened was their engineering team was like in terminal trying to debug their agent, and then they close out a session, they lose where they were, and they had no auditability basically over what their agents were doing. They knew that they were calling on certain tools, they knew the framework they were using, they knew the LLM calls were happening, but there's no way to really like evaluate and actually monitor what was going on. And the engineering team came to us, we ended up setting them up with AgentOps. The full onboarding took less than 5 minutes. And the team came back to us saying we basically 2x'd our productivity by basically having a way to monitor everything that was going on. They said we had built some like hacky internal solution to try and fix this. And it goes, your solution like just knocked out of the water. And the reason is because we spent a lot of time working directly with these frameworks and integrating with them in a very intricate way where we can actually capture everything the agent does. So it's not just LLM calls, which I think a lot of like these LLM observability companies do. We track like all the tool calls, all the network interactions, any APIs being called on, basically everything the agent does end to end. So when you go to debug an agent, you got to see the full picture of what's going on. If you're just looking at just the LLM calls, that's maybe like 5% of debugging. And 95% of it comes back to, okay, how do we actually understand the full ontology end to end of everything that's going on?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to those metrics, which metrics specifically would you advise developers to track in production?
Latency for sure. So anything voice or text-based, like you have to be tracking latency. It's massive. Like I don't want to be on with a support bot and wait 30 seconds for a response. It's just not an enjoyable experience for anybody. So that's one piece. Cost. LLMs have come down a lot in cost, but this is something like if you're trying to actually scale this to eventually like millions and millions of sessions being run per day, you want to make sure that you're tracking costs and see where there's opportunities for efficiencies. Maybe if you see the same LLM calls being done every time, maybe you cache a response or something along those lines, and you actually save significant costs throughout this whole process and actually improve the latency. Failure rates. This is a huge aspect. We have a failure monitor within AgentOps. So you can basically tag what failure is. And you want basically, maybe you want a PagerDuty notification, or you want to get notified if there's some failures occurring. So on our enterprise plan, a lot of the customers that are coming to us, they're asking for, okay, if anything goes wrong throughout this entire process, we want to make sure we're tracking that. And we want to make sure that our engineering team is notified if failures are happening. So that could be, hey, we blew out a context, window, or maybe something like one of the services as part of the agent went down and wasn't able to like call on an API. They want to get notified of this stuff. So these are some of the things that are quintessential to monitor and think through as you're building up these agents. The last one that this is available on our enterprise plan is actually ROI calculator. So it's like how much, hey, I'm making this massive investment into building agents. We think there's going to be this massive outcome on the other end, but being able to quantify that. So if there's any like agency owners listening to this and they're trying to sell through deals, I definitely reach out. I'm happy to get you access to the ROI calculator. Being able to definitively say, hey, let's just say writing a blog cost $100 or $80, and the LLM plus all the tools it's calling costs $1.13. It's very clear for us to make like an ROI benefit, and you're like able to sell it to customers saying, hey, this is what you're paying previously. This is what you're now paying with this agent. And that's one of the best things you can be doing to actually sell your agent, is being able to like quantify and like actually have a tangible impact and say like, okay, with this system, there's a massive cost benefit associated with it.
Wait, it's so funny that you're saying that, because we literally just released our new offer, which is now fully results based, where we actually do exactly that. We track KPIs for our clients and we measure ROI based on those KPIs. And then our guarantee is basically that, if we don't save you more money than you invest, we're going to give you everything back. So can you tell me more? Because I honestly didn't even see that on AgentOps, but I would personally be like super interested. How do you actually calculate ROI when it comes to AI agents?
So there's a bunch of different ways. So it could just be task-based. So just be like, using the blog example, blog cost X, agent run cost Y, doing, and figuring out like every cost associated with this. It's not just the LLM calls, but if you're calling on APIs, if you want to, for example, depreciate the cost of an agent over every session. So let's just say it costs $10,000, or you come to agency, like our consulting arm, and say, hey, it's like, we charge $10,000 to build this agent. Okay, we're going to depreciate over every agent run. So maybe your first runs cost $800 each or whatever it is. And then eventually it comes down to, okay, like now we're spending just a few dollars per run with, in total with LLMs and everything like that. So that's something that's interesting. We have some companies that are trying to plug in their job description and their like, basically their job management platforms to say, okay, like a person is doing these tasks as part of their job. If we can automate that and now have our person focus on the other responsibilities, what is the cost associated with that? So it might be like $20,000 a year or something like that. And being able to then back it into, okay, well, this workflow is running and it's, the total cost per year would be $20,000. Are we creating more than $20,000 in benefits by doing that? And then there's a bunch of other ones that go into more like direct sales type stuff, where it's, okay, we're trying to optimize for a cost per lead or a certain customer acquisition cost, and pulling that data into the actual agent run as well. Then we're just doing basic arithmetic to kind of figure out what that cost is.
That's super cool. Honestly, this last part gets me the most excited. I think, the results-based, not just results-based, but the performance-based is definitely the future of AI agents. It's kind of cool that you can charge for AI agents just like you would charge for any other service in standard agencies like SMMA, which is, a lot more scalable and allows you to get just insane results, not just for your client, but also for yourself, and kind of like also helps you to align the incentives between you and your client. So I would definitely love to get a demo of your platform later on, and also probably hear more about this maybe at the end of this podcast. But for now, I wanted to come back to observability, and I wanted to ask you, like, what are some of the best practices for implementing observability for small businesses and enterprises?
So you can get started for free. Like, that's one of the things we have on our platform. It takes 2 lines of code to get started. We have very comprehensive docs that basically go through all the integrations. If you're building up these agents, like, we support every framework as well as custom agents. So we support Agents SDK from OpenAI, Crew AI, LangChain, Llama Index, ADK from Google, and a bunch of other frameworks. We support everything on your side as well. And I think it's really interesting from our perspective, where a lot of companies, they go and they just start testing all these different frameworks from day zero. So they're like going in and they're saying, hey, I want to test Crew. I want to test Agents SDK. I want to test a few of them. And the beauty of AgentOps is that you have one pane of glass, like one single place where all this agentic data lives. And that's where I think there's huge aspects of benefit for companies, where you day zero, start testing with all these frameworks, see where the success is, see what the cost is, see what the latency is, and then really start working from there. If you just want to have like one quick video that goes viral on Twitter, like obviously it's 2 lines of code, you should get going. But our main focus is for businesses who are really looking, okay, like I'm investing time, effort, energy into building up this agent, and I want this thing to scale for the next decade. And I want to make sure that I'm monitoring everything throughout the entire process of everything that's going on. So that's like my recommendation is just get going. Like it's, we're not making you jump through hoops. We're not making you go to university and take a degree to start building out your agents and have monitoring built in, observability baked in. But it's like 2 lines of code. And if you just reach out to me, I'll even do the implementation for you or someone on our team can as well. But it's like my biggest recommendation is just like try it, see what the benefit. And ultimately, if it's helpful for you, it's a no-brainer. It's so easy to get going doing it.
And do you think that observability is just as important for small businesses? Because I can definitely see, how important it is for enterprise, where 5-10% improvement can make a massive difference, like in terms of millions of dollars. But do you think that small businesses must also implement observability from the beginning, or can they get away without it?
I'll say like, even if you're just a solo developer building something for a small business, like we could still help you. We have some teams that are like, well, teams, but like solopreneurs who are just building out these agents and running these agencies who are working with us. And they're still seeing massive productivity benefits by implementing it. So if you're like the agency developer building out the solution, definitely we should chat. But if you're a smaller business and you have like 1 or 2 engineers, like if you can make them 50% more productive by debugging quicker, it's a no-brainer around the table, is my 2 cents around that.
I see. So here the primary benefit is not actually in the performance improvement of the agent, but actually in the reduction in the development time.
Yeah, it's a huge benefit. And my 2 cents is that no company is going to want like their engineers doing double the work for if there's a solution that's inexpensive off the shelf that works in 2 lines of code.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you compare the most popular AI agent observability platforms and how AgentOps is different?
The easiest way to put it is that we're really Switzerland. Like we integrate with every LLM provider, every agent framework, and we make it as simple as possible to get going. I think some of the other providers, maybe they've taken more of a focus on just LLM observability or certain frameworks that they integrate very well with. But if you're looking for like across the board out of any framework, any LLM, any tooling that you're using, we're by far the best. We have some pretty cool updates coming out over the coming months that'll really wow some of our users. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Can you share with us or not yet?
So there's some cool stuff on the MCP side that's going to be launching. So full MCP observability. We're also launching something that allows you to chat with all your agentic runs, which is going to be exciting. So that's in beta now. If anybody's listening to this and wants access, just definitely shoot me a message. I think from our perspective, there's some more interesting stuff for larger enterprises surrounding how where the data can go and how to access the data and all these things. Maybe not as fun for like the small business crowd, but definitely for like the larger companies, it's going to be a huge win for them.
Wow, definitely sounds exciting. Would love to try them.
One other big one we're launching. This one's also in early access right now, but hosting for agents. So we're launching like the best hosting platform by far for agents. You can use any framework. You can get your agent hosted almost instantly. So this is the type of thing where, if you're really looking at like the full end-to-end software development lifecycle of like prototyping your agent with one of the frameworks, making sure it's reliable enough with AgentOps, and then getting all the way through to production and host, like we're going to have the hosting figured out, and then also monitoring it 24/7, 365. That's the full circle that we're excited to capture. The early customers who are using it are loving the deploy product, and we're excited to kind of get more people on board to start using it.
Awesome. Is the hosting part going to be like also inside the AgentOps platform, or is it like a separate thing?
Nope, all within AgentOps.
That's super cool. And what are some of the most common mistakes that you see developers make when setting up AI agent observability?
Less on observability, more so like a lot of people are biting off way more than they can chew, like way more than they can handle. And I think half the work I do is just telling people like we don't have AGI yet. And my biggest recommendation is just try and build something simple that works with like high degrees of reliability. And that's where, monitoring observability comes in. So instead of trying to go and automate an entire role or entire like job function, start with one little piece that a person does every day as part of their job. Automate that to near 100% accuracy, and then start working from there. But if you're not monitoring that entire process, there's no way for you to track if it's actually going to be reliable or not once it actually hits the main stage and eventually gets millions and millions of users or millions and millions of agent runs behind it.
And what are some of those use cases that you recommend developers to start from?
There's so many, like what I'll say is like chatbots are like very easy to get started with. A lot of people, there's so many great examples from like Agents SDK and all these ones that are so easy. But my biggest recommendation is if you're thinking about what should I build, go talk to like hundreds and hundreds of customers about it. My co-founder, Alex, he has this thing where he's won, I think, 50 plus hackathons. And instead of just going to hackathons and starting coding right away, which is kind of what you're saying is like, okay, if I just watch this video and just start coding right away, what can I build? His whole strategy at these hackathons is he goes to talk to as many people as possible before he starts building a project. And so I would recommend like put a poll out on Twitter, put a poll out on LinkedIn, go talk to as many people as possible, get rejected, have people not respond to you, keep following up with people, and come to an understanding like here are the agents people really, really want. We've been really fortunate where with agency and AgentOps, we have a lot of customers coming inbound to us who want these agents built. And a lot of our focus has been, okay, where are the like similarities across all these different agent builds? And figuring out these types of opportunities has been massive unlock. So instead of us building ad hoc for every customer we're working with, we're actually going in and now saying, okay, like we've seen this use case 5 times with these customers. Let's figure out how to actually bring it over to your particular use case in a totally different industry.
Mm-hmm. So the best use case is not something that you can just mention, because as soon as you mention that, it instantly becomes the worst use case because everybody's going to start doing that, right? So the best use case is the one that you find by yourself in like some super niche industry that no one actually knows about and that quietly brings a lot of value.
Yeah, these are the ones like OpenAI and Anthropic and Gemini and these big labs. They're not going to be touching day zero. I've talked about this, I think, publicly before, but we had this person who was basically in charge of estate planning. So when someone passes away, they figure out who's going to be the next of kin and the next person who's going to basically take on their estate. And he built an agent that goes and scrapes the internet for obituaries and automatically reaches out to people who have passed away and figures out who their kids are and who the next of kin is and does this full process using an agent. And like, this is such a little niche that like his competitors aren't thinking through this. He's built this himself using AgentOps and some resources from agency. And I look at it, I'm like, this is the real, like, these are the big unlocks. These are like, it's such a weird niche use case, or not weird, but like interesting use case. And I think a lot of people need to kind of start thinking through these of like, maybe your parents run a small business. What is the little use case that could save them a few hours a day? And thinking through these and building accordingly, like that's the biggest thing you can be doing to start winning in the space.
And how much is he making right now?
I can't, we can talk offline, but it's insane.
Okay. Like 6 figures?
More. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's super cool. All right. So what emerging trends do you see right now in AI agent observability in the coming year?
So I think like we're continuing to double down on like working with all the frameworks. I think that's something that we took a bet on early on. Customers are coming to us saying, here's one particular agent, and we want to run like tons of variations of the same agent. So that's something we've been thinking through a lot. Like if we're going to be having 100 variations of the same agent to try and optimize towards what success looks like, how are we building evals, how are we building our products in a way that allows you to really easily understand and compare these different sessions. Some other trends we're seeing is like a lot more usage. Like I think like when we were pitching agents 2 years ago, a lot of people weren't necessarily taking them so seriously. Now we have like entire divisions at massive companies going and building these agents out from the ground up. So I think we're starting to like get to more like a higher state of maturity with this industry. I think the tooling layer has become like a lot more advanced than when we first got into this a few years ago. So I think we're working on a lot of stuff around the tooling and how do we make sure like the experience of like seeing what tools your agent is accessing is as enjoyable as possible.
Mm-hmm. What you said there about hundreds of agents is the most exciting to me. I would say tooling is also like super exciting in the fact that, companies are actually hiring like entire divisions of agents and people who make agents. But the fact that you can run like hundreds of agents in parallel, this has just never, been even thought of as possible before, because employees are just not as scalable, You can't iterate on the performance of like an employee for 100 times, or it will take you like 2 years. While with agents, you can literally have like an army of agents running in parallel, and then you can just select the best one.
I love that perspective. Yeah, it is interesting. I didn't really think about it as like, yeah, if you have your workforce, they're pretty static. You can't update them. There's hiring, there's firing, there's all these things. Agents, it's you push one update and the agent's functionality can completely change overnight. So that's a really good perspective. I like that.
Awesome. So Adam, your company AgentOps also raised $2 million funding round. So out of all the gaps in the AI agent ecosystem, why did you specifically choose observability and agent operations?
Awesome. Yeah. So my co-founder Alex and I, we were building agents and we just couldn't figure out how to debug them. And this was like March 2023. We were super early to all this stuff. And what we realized really early on was that if you couldn't debug your agents, they're never going to see production. They're never going to actually work. So we ended up building AgentOps as an internal tool to debug our own agents. And being in San Francisco and going to hackathons and showing people our product, we realized there's a lot of entrepreneurs who were building agents as well who needed this same type of tooling. So we kind of fell into it by realizing, hey, this is going to be a massive need, like by realizing, hey, there's no tooling that could support us now, and then ended up just building a product that people really needed as part of their full software development lifecycle.
I love that. Honestly, I love that because it seems like a very natural transition for you. You were literally solving your own problem. And in my opinion, this is, the most risk-free way to build something amazing.
We tried, yeah, for sure.
However, OpenAI recently also introduced their own observability tools, which are super tightly integrated with their platform. Like, of course, to set up AgentOps, it takes only 2 lines of code, which, obviously is not a big deal. But with OpenAI, it's like literally out of the box. And they also have like multi-agent functionality supported. Of course, it's not like as developed, but I think they're going to be developing it further in the future. So how do you plan to compete with observability tools by those LLM providers like OpenAI and Anthropic?
So from our perspective, like huge fans of their product. We've been using it, and kudos to the team who's been working on it. I will say, like, a lot of the organizations we're working with now, they're not just using OpenAI. So OpenAI is amazing. We use it a ton internally, but they're also using Anthropic. They're also using Gemini. They're also using local models. They're also using fine-tuned models from companies like OpenPipe. And when I look at the kind of where we're at now, it's like we haven't seen a clear winner yet. And it's the same thing in the framework space. So there isn't a clear winner. Like, there's certain use cases I think lend themselves very well to certain frameworks. But where we're at now is, like, you're not going to just use a single LLM and be married to it for the next decade. So you might, if you want to have one observability platform that captures all your data across every agentic run, across every LLM, that's when you need a platform like AgentOps that can really go in and be that kind of like Switzerland play where, hey, we play friendly with everybody. Think about like MuleSoft from Salesforce. I think it's a good example. It's like, go figure out all the integrations, go integrate into everything. And then it doesn't matter what you're using. We're going to basically have the toolkit to make that happen. So that's been kind of a huge unlock for us, and something that we've really realized. Some of the biggest companies in the world right now, they're using multiple LLMs. They're not just using it. So it's amazing. Like, I think if you're using just OpenAI, their observability tooling is awesome. The other thing to think through is like tool use. Like I kind of mentioned before, if you're going to go start using external tools from other providers, we're already linked into all those tools. So that's one of the aspects that I think is a huge value add when you start using a platform that's specifically tailored just for agent observability, opposed to just monitoring just the LLM calls or multi-agent tendencies from a single LLM provider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also actually recently shifted our strategy from being a single framework to supporting all frameworks on our platform. Not because we don't believe that our framework is the best, but because I just think that the future is unlikely to be a single framework. And each framework is going to excel in their own specific capabilities. And the same is going to apply to large language models. And honestly, I've been like extremely impressed by how fast Anthropic was able to catch up with OpenAI. I thought it would take them like decades, but now they already perform better than OpenAI at coding. So can you share some of the mistakes and lessons that you learned when you were building this platform?
I think one thing like very early is like after we got funding, I think we were very conservative. We were kind of treating it like, this is the only money we're ever going to have. And we were acting like very like risk adverse, and kind of maybe to other founders is looking back, I think at that time, I wish we were a bit more risk takey. I think like we had a lot of bets that could have played out very early on, but we were just focused on like building an amazing product early on. But we didn't kind of take out a lot of these side quests that I wanted to maybe early on. So that's one thing where it's like, if you have strong conviction and there's enough data to support that there's like a good opportunity, take that bet. And I really think like looking at like the venture funding as like an accelerant to bringing some of these ideas to market is a huge aspect there. So that's one thing that we definitely, I think, could have pushed forward on a lot more. Yeah, I think like, anybody who's in this space who's like looking to build agents now, maybe this is like the paradigm is switched. But like, I think there's a world we can make a very profitable business day zero before raising any funding, and then go into actually going, if you're like, okay, like something is working here, go and scale it. And maybe this is just like a learning and what I'm seeing kind of now in the market. But we're seeing a ton of these companies, like they're literally building agents in N8N and reselling them and then realizing, wow, we can actually, there's a 10, 20, 30% performance boost if we actually go build this ourselves from the ground up. And that's a huge value add that I think like a lot of companies should be thinking through is like, can I get an MVP out there that people are willing to pay for? And jumping off from there into building a pretty sustainable business.
Yeah, so I also think that, building an MVP is essential before you raise funding. And in my opinion, this is the worst mistake that you can make, is to build something just to raise money, even though it doesn't work. But do you have any advice for entrepreneurs and founders like me on how to actually raise money? Because I do see that, there's a lot of content on how you can build an MVP, but no one actually talks about the funding, like when to raise money and how to actually do it.
So we actually run something called Agent Fund. It's a small fund with Yohei and my co-founder Alex. Yohei from Baby AGI, if anyone's familiar with Baby AGI. And so we're getting these pitches all the time of different agent companies. And I think the things that really stand out is if you have a deep understanding of a problem, or you have like something that is, actually works out of the box and people are ripping out of your hands, obviously like that's the best place to be. But sometimes you're too early. Like I think when we were pitching observability for agents, I remember investors were telling us, oh, well, we like your team, but we don't know if these agent things are going to be a thing in 2 years or 10 years, or if they're ever going to catch on. And you kind of have to find people who are equally as crazy as you are and are willing to take a bet on it. And I think that's a very important thing. I think like you can have a vision and you can say, hey, I want to go execute on it. But if your investors don't believe in that vision, it's a very, very hard place to be. So that's one aspect. I think one aspect, I don't know, maybe this is contrarian, but I like to build good relationships with investors. Like I like to know them. I like to see, can they be helpful before they even invest? So some of our early investors, like they're making introductions before they ever invested. They were saying, hey, can I introduce you to this person? Oh, this portfolio company might be relevant for you. And these are the types of things, they pay massive dividends if done correctly. So I highly, highly recommend like businesses or like people who are going out to raise to think like, who are the right partners? Capital is one aspect, but if they're not going to be, in your court, if they're not going to be defending you, if they're not going to be promoting you 24/7, maybe then they're not the right investors for you. So some people just want passive investors to just give them money and never kind of talk to them. Personally, I'm of a different belief. I want to be able to call my investors at 3 a.m. when things are really not going well. And I want to call them at 3 p.m. when things are going incredible. But I think that that's one aspect that you kind of have to figure out, like, what is the type of investor I actually want and how are they going to be very helpful for me long-term? So for example, with Agent Fund, it's, okay, Adam, Alex, and Yohei know basically everybody in the agent space. They understand where the market's going. They understand what tooling's right. They understand, how to go work with any of the companies that exist out there. And that's one piece that like people are coming to saying, oh, wow, you guys are like an unlock from a network perspective to go and access all these different folks. So that's one piece I think could be, interesting. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like everybody's journey is different and you have to figure out like who is the right partner for you ultimately and figure out like, it's all like speed dating where I think a lot of founders treat like raising money like, oh, I'm going to go on as many dates as possible. I'm going to go and meet with as many investors as possible and see who's willing to close. It's like, I'm more of like, hey, I'm trying to find my true love. Like I'm trying to like go out there. I'm trying to meet like a few people who are really, really, really strong and know that like this is like could be a 10-year plus, hopefully even longer engagement together. So that's maybe a different perspective than other people share. But I think like the speed dating, it's like, great, you met me on Monday and you want to close my round by Wednesday and have the funds in by Friday. But like it's great if you really are in a cash pinch, but you don't really know them at all. And then you're now in a business relationship for the next decade with these folks that you've known for 3 days, which is a very interesting thing that I at least from our perspective, I don't really love.
Do you recommend founders to base their startups somewhere in like San Francisco to actually build those relationships? Or is it possible to do fully remote today?
I think you do fully remote, but I got to say like, our office is in South Park in San Francisco. Like we walk around, like you just hear stuff, you meet investors socially, like it's like, I personally love it. Like if you meet investors socially and you become friends. And then when you actually, want to go raise capital, you understand them. You understand like the hardships they're facing, what's going on with their portfolio companies, how they're dealing with stuff like from a personal perspective. So being in SF is great because you have such a high, like so much access to all these different investors. Same thing with New York as well. But I mean, like I think building at least our startup, like being situated in San Francisco is an absolute game changer for us. I don't know if we would have been able to build it anywhere else.
And what contributes to that? Like what are the key factors that, give you such a significant advantage?
I think just the amount of early adopters and people who are like truly like technologically visionary in San Francisco is unprecedented relative to anywhere else in the world. So if I think about it, I think that San Francisco is probably like a year ahead of maybe Canada, maybe 6 months ahead of New York, like, or like from Toronto, where I'm originally from. I think it's a year ahead of there. I think it's probably 6 months ahead of New York. And like, as great as like the stuff you see on like X and saying, oh wow, like agents are everywhere. The reality is like most businesses, like you go to middle America to, you know, like there's places people don't even know what ChatGPT is. People who don't really know what AI is. And like, these are the types of aspects where you want to build in a place that's like conducive and is pushing you forward. Like you might go see a lecture or go to an event in San Francisco and hear about some new MCP concept. And then like, for example, like one of our engineers went to an MCP event, heard something amazing from like one of the, you know, this amazing researcher, came back that night and started building a product accordingly to what he said. And like those feedback cycles are just so quick. Yeah, maybe that will get uploaded onto YouTube somewhere and then eventually you might be able to watch it. Or you could have it instantly in real time. Hey, I saw this, I'm building this feature. And then by like, you know, that happened on Tuesday, by Thursday, there's a new feature shipped. So like, I'm just kind of throwing out these ideas here that like your proximity to engineering excellence and like brilliant engineering minds, there's no better place to be than San Francisco. And then when it comes to fundraising, it's the same thing. It's just like, you know, there's so much capital available, especially at the earliest stages.
Mm-hmm. I see. Definitely network and the fundraising is, you know, the two most common things I hear about San Francisco. I personally decided to base my startup in Dubai anyway, because, you know, there are still some downsides. I definitely agree with what you said. That, you know, the network in San Francisco is amazing. And I am planning to visit San Francisco this summer just to check it out myself. Maybe this will change my opinion. Maybe not. I don't know. But I also think that, you know, today there are some disadvantages to being in the United States. And also I think that the world has gone global and that today, you know, you really don't have to be in a specific place to build $1 billion company because all of the infrastructure is so productized that, you know, you don't have to set up your own service. And the talent is also really abundant after the COVID. You know, people realize that you can work fully remotely. So can I ask you to play devil's advocate right now and tell me about like some of the things that frustrate you about building in San Francisco?
Well, one thing is like we have some amazing engineers on our team and getting their visa, like getting them approved to come to the US, like it's a hard thing. Like there's no beating around the bush. I'm Canadian, like coming down to the US was like a whole process to get my visa. So that's one thing that like you definitely have to think through. Obviously taxes are high and like there's a bunch of aspects there. Like living expenses are very high. There's these things, but I think it does all add to the ecosystem at the end of the day. I think like some of the most brilliant engineering minds in the world are within like a 10 block by 10 block radius in San Francisco is kind of how I think through it. And if you're trying to build a company that grows super fast and you want to access this type of talent, that's like, you know, it's amazing to be able to like walk down the street or go to an event or go to a party or something like that and meet somebody and they're like, oh, wow, I'm actually looking for a job. I'm bored at my, you know, job at some FAANG company. I want to go and, you know, actually start working on startups. Like you're getting access to that talent day zero. So that's like a huge kind of benefit, but it's like, you know, there are trade-offs. You know, if you're, you know, an international student or coming from a different country, it might not be as easy to even break into the ecosystem. So we have a few employees that are working for us remote, and we're working through getting their visas, but it's a beast. Like it doesn't happen overnight, and it's a very stressful thing for everybody involved.
Also, do you think that talent still plays the same importance when, you know, top 50 level engineers are literally within a browser tab away, like Codex?
So it definitely does. Like I see how like some of my engineers on my team who are, let's just say like older engineers who are more like veterans use these tools versus how like more like recent grads use these tools. And I think these tools, like we'll see in a year, like we can redo this podcast in a year from now. We'll see how advanced they get. But I don't think software engineers are going anywhere. I think it's really, really important for us to still realize that like you need amazing engineering minds to even steer this ship, to even steer these systems on how to operate and how to think through how to use them. I think for building MVPs, it's incredible. Like, you know, we do mock-ups in like minutes, it feels like. But if you're going to build production grade apps, you still want these amazing engineers who are like, we're very big on in-office. Everybody comes into the office every day. Like it's a much nicer feeling where you go into an office, there's energy, the camaraderie is real. And that's one thing like you can't replace by having like an online team of, you know, virtual agents building your company for you.
I see. I actually heard Sundar Pichai say on Lex Friedman's podcast that although AI is responsible for writing around 30% of their code right now, the amount of time that humans spend on reviewing the code actually hasn't changed. And so how do you think like the role of software engineers is going to evolve in the future?
I think there's going to be like basic things that these agents just get really good at. Like we even use Devin quite a bit. We use Codex. We use basically all the tooling. Claude Code. I saw Gemini just launched their new command line tool today, so we'll be using that, or we'll start testing it and see how it performs. But I think how it changes long term is that I think the best engineers are going to become the most valuable assets ever. Like if you're, top 0.01% engineer, to be able to think through problems, like really deeply think and think like from an architecture perspective, how are we going to make this the best product possible? That's a huge, like that's going to be invaluable. And then these, more entry level engineers, they're just going to be, 24/7 talking to these tools. So it's this very interesting dynamic that's going to play out over the next few years. And I think one thing that's great for these, entry level engineers is that everyone becomes a great software developer day zero. And I think this is going to be, it'll be interesting. I think the review piece is a huge factor. I also think the way that we even maybe even do roadmap planning and stuff like that might fundamentally change. Like a roadmap discussion might be us just sending off Codex and Claude Code and Devin and all these different things. So we're saying, hey, here's something on our roadmap, and just having iterations going in real time on it. And this is I think we're almost there, but we just got to make sure that these systems are used in the right way, and we're not pushing stuff to production that hasn't been thoroughly reviewed and hasn't been checked and isn't kind of throwing up errors once it actually hits our production systems.
And what about the other side of this? Like, what about the AI agents themselves? How are they going to evolve?
Like, if you want to get every business user in the world using agents, it's going to be something similar to a Cursor or just something that's basic, or like ChatGPT. It's going to be natural language, to interface with it. Maybe it's within Slack, maybe it's within Teams. I'm not sure exactly what the future state looks like, but I am bullish that it's going to be in an existing platform that you're already using every day. However, engineering it, I'm excited because now there's more ways to connect applications than ever. You have Composio, you have merge.dev, you have a bunch of these players that are these kind of unified APIs or Pipedream that allow you to go connect all these different applications. So I think the building process for building agents is going to become a lot easier. I think it's going to be even easier to access these agents basically in any medium that you see fit. And I think this is what's going to be a massive, push in terms of adoption, is that you're not going to need to go open some command line tool to start running the agent. Day zero, just being able to tag, at Adam's agent in Slack, can you give me an update on everything I have to do today or something like that? And it'll just be done instantly.
And so what are some of your favorite AI agents and AI tools that you use on a daily basis today?
So we built a lot internally that we use. So we have one girl on our team, Lasia, who makes these amazing agents for us. So she's been working on a bunch of cool ones. We use a bunch of the agent builders. We're using N8N for very basic automations, Lindy, Gumloop. We love all these tools off the shelf. A lot of the agents we're building now from the ground up are using Agents SDK from OpenAI, which has been really, really impressive for us. As well, we have a few in crew that are doing exceptionally well. However, AI tools I use every day, like Superhuman and Whisperflow, that is the best combo in the world. I basically dictate almost, I'd say probably 90% of my emails now. It's massive. I just showed my mom how to use Whisperflow, and she's using it now, and she loves it. I haven't got her quite yet over to Superhuman, but I basically can do Command J, do Ask AI or Answer with AI within Superhuman as context on my whole email. I can just explain exactly what I want this email to say, and I get something that's nearly perfect. It's trained on my tone, trained on my voice, all these types of things. So these are the types of things it blows me away that we have this type of functionality now. The only issue is if you're in a company with hundreds of people and everyone's in office, everyone's going to be talking to their computers all day, which is a very interesting paradigm from typing all day, or paradigm switch from typing all day.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is how, the software is changing today, the paradigm of using software in general. It's instead of using our computers, we're just now talking to our machines. And I think Sam Altman and Johnny Ive are building something specifically for that, a device that, is supposed to be that form factor for this new AI paradigm. So do you have any insights, since, all of those companies, including OpenAI, are 10 blocks away from you? Do you have any ideas on what it's going to look like?
My long-term vision, I've been I publicly talked about this previously, but I don't even think we're going to worry about building agents or building automations. I think they're just going to be built automatically for you. So you're just going to log into your computer, you're going to just go about your day-to-day job, and these agents are going to be automatically built. I don't think this is here yet. I think this is something that our team is very bullish on, something we think through quite a bit. But I think the future of like RPA and the future of like these like automation engines is going to look very different a few years from now. I think natural language is going to be a huge factor in it. I love speaking. Like I love speaking to my computer. I think I can only type like, I don't know, 80 words a minute, or I don't know exact number, but I can dictate like 200 words per minute. And so like there is going to be this paradigm shift where you realize like if you want to have that 3x productivity boost or whatever it might be, or 2x productivity boost plus, like there are very simple things you can start doing today that will actually get you there. But we go back to the Sundar point of like, then you just spend more time reviewing your emails instead of writing them. So that's kind of the interesting piece there.
Yeah, I hope that at some point AI will get good enough where it will just like know so much about me that I won't even have to like dictate pretty much anything. It will just like ask me, hey, like, do you want to go like this way or this way? And I'm just going to say like, yeah, respond in this way and done. So what do you see also on the regulatory compliance side of things in AI? Because there are like some debates about like different new like regulations in the United States today. Do you think that we should regulate AI, and like how do you think this will affect the progress?
I think I just see how much advancement's going on the open source side, and it makes me like worried about regulating AI and worried about like other countries who maybe have more lax restrictions on, you know, not regulating AI, that they actually become the superpower. So I'm more of the camp like, I think the cat's out of the bag. I think like utilize this technology the best way possible. I think they're obviously like when it comes to privacy and sensitive information, all these types of things, like this should be definitely prioritized. A lot of the customers that are using AgentOps are using it because they're dealing with like, you know, they're running these agent sessions. They need to have compliance history over everything that's going on behind the agents. But yeah, I think my recommendation there is that like be like, you know, as a company or a user, like adopt the AI as quickly as possible, adopt these systems, figure out what agents will actually be beneficial. And the regulatory side, I think they should ensure that like the US and like basically any country is best positioned to be a leader in the space and not try and block, you know, advancements because of obviously you need to protect consumer rights, you need to protect privacy. And I'm not like by any means like an expert on the compliance and privacy side of like AI regulation, but I think there's basic needs that need to be met, and then everything else is just try and figure out, okay, how can we actually make the most use of this product or these tools possible so that other countries aren't winning.
And what's one advice that you would give to someone just getting started in the space?
Watch YouTube. Like if you're already watching this video, you're already like halfway there.
Totally agree with you. I think YouTube is the best way to learn AI. It's actually funny how it played out like this. Okay, so we're going to be waiting for more cool features that you've mentioned on AgentOps. I think this was a super engaging discussion. I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Adam. And where can we follow your journey moving forward?
Awesome. So yeah, like our website's agentops.ai. Our consulting website's agen.cy. So if you need a custom agent built, reach out to us there. You can find me on Twitter, ATOM Silverman. With LinkedIn, it's just Adam Silverman. But I post a weekly update on everything that happens in AI agents. So if you're really trying to get up to speed quickly on it, maybe in the like show notes or in the description, we can just share that. But yeah, definitely take a look at those posts, because I really try and look at everything that happens in the agent space and think like what is actually going to have the biggest impact on companies and solopreneurs and people who are just like looking at the space, and spend a lot of time crafting that every week. So basically there is a historical, like I think I've been doing it for like 8 or 9 months now. You can go historically and you can go see all the progress over the past 8-9 months of everything that happens every week in the space. So that's my biggest recommendation for kind of people who are trying to figure out what their next step is after listening to this video.
Oh, cool. I'm going to connect an agent to your Twitter.
Do it. Please do.
All right. Well, hope to see you in San Francisco soon, Adam. Thank you.
Enjoy. Talk soon. Bye.
So you will find this notebook in the description, and in this quick tutorial I will show you how to connect the new version of Agency Swarm with LangFuse, AgentOps, and also the default OpenAI tracing. So to install the new version of Agency Swarm, you need to use the special beta.4 tag. Then we're just going to add some imports, and then in the next cell, make sure that you include all of your API keys. After that, we are going to define one tool just as an example, and it's going to be called Analyze Dataset. Then we're going to define a special method called Create Agency, and the agent creation process is pretty much the same. And now here's how you actually set up the tracing and observability with all these platforms. So for OpenAI tracing, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is just add the with trace And then inside this with trace block, you simply add all of the methods, like for example, getting a response from your agency. For link views, you need to use the special decorator functions called observe, and essentially any methods where you initialize your agents or where you run them, you need to wrap in these decorators. And for AgentOps, you need to use a special AgentOps init on top, and then also you need to use the start trace method with the name of your trace. And then you can basically create your agents and run them as you want. So this is how you initialize all of these three platforms. Now let's actually run them, and then I'm gonna just show you what it looks like from the dashboards. So now let's first go to OpenAI, and as you can see here, we now have the new trace on top with those three agents that we just created. And I really like how OpenAI organizes these traces. We can clearly see all of the function outputs, all of the user messages, all of the instructions that go into an agent. And we can even track the tool calls that trigger other agents. So as you can see, the agent called send message to developer tool, and then we can see the trace by the developer agent who actually created the code. And the same goes for the data analyst agent, which also used the analyze dataset tool. And of course, we can also see the output right here. So as you can imagine, this gives you a complete observability into what your agent is actually doing. And you can actually even analyze the latency of each tool call or each API call that the agent makes. Now let's go to AgentOps. On AgentOps, the setup is pretty similar. They also have this nice metrics dashboard where you can see all of the success and failure rates, the trace duration, and under traces, we can actually see a similar picture with our agent workflow where the CEO agent first called the developer agent and then the data analyst agent, and then the data analyst agent also provided us with the response. On link views, it also looks similar. So I'm not going to go over the traces, but LinkFuse does also have some additional pretty cool features. Like, for example, you can set up human annotation, LLM as a judge, and you can even create your own custom dashboards. So yeah, that's pretty much how you set up observability. As you can see, it's extremely simple. All you need to do is just add a couple of lines of code, and then instantly you're going to have full visibility into what your agents are actually doing. This is key because, as we discussed with Adam, you need to be able to actually see the full picture before you can improve the system.